The research vessel Xylarian hung in orbit above the unassuming blue planet, its polished hull glinting faintly in the sunlight. To the crew of hyper-intelligent beings from the Zorathi Confederation, Earth was a curiosity, a chaotic anomaly in an otherwise predictable galaxy. Officially, their mission was straightforward: catalog and study the planet's food chain for potential interstellar trade. But what had seemed a routine assignment had turned into a simmering stew of apprehension the moment they began collecting samples. "Everything here is trying to kill us," hissed Chief Nutritional Biologist T. Rivak, his gelatinous form quivering indignantly. His silvery sheen, usually smooth and composed, rippled with frustration as he gestured toward a holographic display. A single, innocuous red fruit rotated on screen, flanked by streams of glowing data that flashed in alarming shades of yellow and orange. This so-called pepper contains a compound, capsacin, that causes physical pain. Pain. In food. The bridge was silent for a beat before erupting into murmurs of disapproval. The Zorathi, who had long perfected the art of nourishment as a sterile, efficient process, viewed this development as both baffling and borderline reckless. Food was sustenance, a careful balance of nutrients tailored to each species' biology. The idea of ingesting something that caused intentional discomfort defied all logic. "Perhaps it's a natural deterrent," offered Specialist V.A. Lith, her translucent wings flickering nervously as she reviewed the data. "Some organisms evolve chemical defenses to avoid predation. It's likely these humans are unaware of the compound's effects." "Unaware?" T. Rivak scoffed, his gelatinous form expanding slightly in outrage. "Do you think they're too primitive to notice their mouths are burning? No, V.A. Lith. These humans do it on purpose. Look." He gestured to a holographic recording taken earlier that day. On the screen, a crowd of humans bustled around what they called a food festival, seemingly undeterred by the swirling clouds of smoke and sizzling contraptions. The camera zoomed in on a man with sweat pouring down his face, his mouth open in a triumphant shout. In one hand, he held a vibrant orange stick of something freed and crackling, which he waved like a trophy. "This is the good stuff," he declared between desperate gulps of water, his voice hoarse but jubilant. V.A. Lith recoiled instinctively. Why is he laughing? He appears to be in distress. "Precisely," T. Rivak exclaimed, throwing up what might generously be called his arms. "They enjoy their suffering. They revel in it. And they're not alone, observe the others." He zoomed out the video feed, revealing a sea of humans eagerly sampling colorful dishes, many of them gasping, sweating, or even coughing, but still returning for more. Commander Zeltax, a towering figure of polished chitin and commanding authority, broke the murmuring with the sharp click of his mandibles. "Enough speculation," he said, his voice as steady as the ship's engines. "It is possible this behavior serves a greater biological or social purpose. If humans can consume these so-called spicy foods without harm, it may suggest unique adaptations worth studying. Prepare a research expedition." The landing site was a kaleidoscope of chaos. The Zorathi shuttle touched down in a bustling urban marketplace, its reflective surface casting dappled sunlight across the crowd. Humans moved about with apparent ease, carrying bundles of colorful produce or pausing to sample wares from sizzling street-side carts. The air was thick with aromas so pungent and complex that even the Zorathi's advanced filtration systems struggled to process them. T. Rivak squished uncomfortably inside his containment suit, his voice strained as he muttered into his communicator. "I'm detecting over 70 volatile organic compounds. Many of them are known irritants. Why are they? Smiling." "They seem to enjoy the toxicity," V.A. Lith replied, pointing toward a stall where a human vendor was ladling a fiery red sauce over skewers of grilled meat. A long line of customers waited eagerly, their faces a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. Commander Zeltax tilted his head, his antennae swiveling to scan the scene. Observe their reactions. This may provide insight into their resilience. A cheerful older woman running the stall noticed the aliens' approach and waved enthusiastically. "Well, aren't you folks a sight for sore eyes? Fancy some barbecue?" T. Rivak hesitated, his gelatinous body contracting slightly. "We seek information on these substances," he said cautiously, gesturing toward the skewers. "What purpose do they serve?" The vendor chuckled, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face as she lifted a skewer dripping with sauce. Purpose? It's food, love. It's for eatin' and enjoyin'. This here's my secret recipe got a bit of a kick to it, but don't worry, it's worth the burn. The burn va Lith asked warily, her wings fluttering in alarm. The vendor smiled as though she were sharing a delightful secret. Oh, you'll feel it, all right. Makes you sweat, clears the sinuses, and puts a little fire in your belly. Go on, try a bite. T. Rivak took an involuntary step back, his suit shifting slightly as he adjusted his containment field. Zelthax, however, stepped forward, his mandibles clicking in what the humans might interpret as curiosity. We accept your offering. He extended a containment tool and gingerly plucked a skewer from the vendor's outstretched hand, holding it as though it might spontaneously combust. As the vendor turned to serve another customer, a nearby teenager with unruly hair and a basketball tucked under one arm stopped to watch. He smirked at the aliens and grabbed his own skewer. What's the matter? Too spicy for you. Without waiting for a response, he bit into the fiery morsel with exaggerated gusto, his face immediately turning red. Tears streamed down his cheeks, but he raised his free hand in triumph. Delicious. He croaked, between fits of coughing. T. Rivak froze. Are they defective? The boy gave a hoarse laugh, his voice still rasping. Defective? Nah. This is normal. You should try it. Zelthax held up the skewer, his mandibles twitching slightly as he studied it. This warrants further study, he declared. Secure additional samples. Delighted by the alien's interest, the vendor packed an assortment of her offerings into a container, waving away their attempts to provide payment. No charge for you fine folks. You're great for business, look at the crowd you're drawing. She gestured toward the growing throng of humans, many of whom had begun snapping photos or calling out questions. The Zorathi team retreated to their shuttle with their mysterious haul, determined to unravel the enigma of humanity's apparent immunity or perhaps addiction to what was, by all definitions, a hazardous substance. Back aboard the Xylarian, the research lab buzzed with activity. T. Rivak and his team dissected the samples, analyzing everything from molecular structure to neural response simulations. The findings were as perplexing as they were troubling. Capsacin didn't just cause discomfort, it triggered a cascade of physiological reactions that should have been deeply unpleasant. Increased heart rate, sweating, and even a mild fight or flight response. And yet, humans not only endured it, they sought it out. Why, T. Rivak groaned, slumping against a control panel as his silvery form rippled with exasperation. What evolutionary advantage could this possibly provide? Perhaps it's not about survival, via Lith suggested. It could be cultural. A shared experience that fosters bonding. They seem to enjoy watching each other suffer. Sadomasochistic tendencies, T. Rivak speculated grimly. Zelthax entered the lab, holding a datapad loaded with fresh reports. We have gathered additional data. There are events, competitions, they call them, dedicated entirely to consuming these foods. Humans train for years to withstand greater levels of spice. They consider it a mark of distinction. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, T. Rivak spoke, his voice tinged with resignation. We are dealing with a species that voluntarily poisons itself for entertainment. How can we possibly understand them? We start by trying it ourselves, Zelthax declared, his tone leaving no room for argument. To understand their perspective, we must walk in there, feet coverings. The team exchanged uneasy glances but knew better than to defy their commander. With meticulous care, they prepared a diluted portion of the fiery sauce for testing. T. Rivak volunteered to go first, his scientific curiosity overriding his survival instincts. The moment the sauce touched his sensory receptors, his entire body rippled like water struck by a stone. He froze, his gelatinous form quivering. Finally he croaked, "It's complex." Complex, va Lith asked cautiously. It burns, T. Rivak managed. But there's flavor, depth. It's not entirely unpleasant. For the first time, the Zorathi began to understand. And though they couldn't fully grasp humanity's penchant for culinary chaos, they couldn't deny the tantalizing spark of curiosity it had ignited. For the next cycle aboard the Xylarian, the research bay transformed into a bustling hub of curiosity. What began as a cautious analysis of Earth's fiery cuisine had evolved into an obsession. T. Rivak's tentative description of Earth's spicy food as complex, not entirely unpleasant, had sparked a wave of experiments. The Zorathi, a species renowned for their clinical approach to sustenance, found themselves oddly compelled to delve deeper into humanity's bizarre culinary practices. Yet, with every step forward, new questions emerged. It's a biochemical paradox, T. Rivak explained during the morning briefing, his gelatinous form smoothing out as he projected a holochart of capsacin's molecular structure. The compound triggers nociceptors in the mouth, simulating pain. Yet, in response, the human brain releases endorphins, a natural painkiller, creating what they describe as an exhilarating sensation. So they poison themselves to experience pleasure, asked specialist VA Lith, her translucent wings flickering with disbelief. That sounds counterproductive. It's more than that, T. Rivak replied, zooming in on a video of humans participating in what they called a spicy wing challenge. Participants were sweating profusely, tears streaming down their faces as they laughed and cheered each other on. They seemed to derive social benefits from this shared experience. It's a form of bonding, even celebration. Unfathomable, muttered VA Lith. And yet she hesitated. I can't stop wondering what it might feel like. T. Rivak fixed her with a pointed look. Neither can I, which is why I've requested external collaborators. 2 Earth days later, 3 human volunteers arrived aboard the Xylarian in response to the Zorathi's open invitation. They were an eclectic group: Emma, a middle-aged chef with a passion for global cuisines; Carlos, a thrill-seeking college student who prided himself on his spice tolerance; and Uncle Mike, a grizzled retiree with a jar of his homemade hot sauce tucked under one arm. The trio stepped off the shuttle and into the Zorathi research bay, their expressions a mix of awe and curiosity. The humans' casual confidence was a stark contrast to the Zorathi crew, who had gathered at a safe distance to observe these ambassadors of capsacin-fueled chaos. Emma broke the ice, her warm smile radiating a practiced hospitality. All right, so which one of you wants to try my cooking first? T. Rivak oozed forward hesitantly. To clarify, you are here to provide insight into your species' dietary habits, he said. We seek to understand why humans willingly consume substances that induce pain. Uncle Mike snorted. Because it's fun, he said, holding up his jar of sauce. The label read Hellfire Extreme for those who dare. You get a good sweat going, clear your sinuses, maybe shed a tear or two. What's not to like? Carlos nodded eagerly. Yeah, spice is all about the thrill. It's like a roller coaster for your taste buds. You build tolerance over time, and the hotter you can go, the cooler you feel. The Zorathi exchanged confused glances, their antennae drooping slightly. You equate pain with recreational excitement, VA Lith asked cautiously. Emma stepped forward, her voice soothing. It's not just the heat, she explained. Spicy food has flavor, rich, layered, and unique. The burn enhances the experience, makes it memorable, and it brings people together. Food, especially spicy food, is a way for us to connect. T. Rivak's gelatinous form shimmered with cautious curiosity. Very well. Let us proceed to the testing phase. The research bay soon resembled an experimental kitchen. Each human participant was provided with their own station, complete with an assortment of Earth ingredients. The Zorathi monitored the process with a mix of fascination and unease as the humans prepared their signature dishes. Emma sautéed chili peppers and garlic in a skillet, the sizzling sound accompanied by a plume of fragrant steam that sent several Zorathi scurrying for their air filters. This is a classic Sichuan stir-fry, she explained, tossing in a handful of dried red chilies. The key is balancing heat with other flavors: salty, sweet, and savory. Carlos, at the next station, was chopping fresh jalapenos and habaneros for his salsa. He occasionally dipped a chip into the mixture, wincing as he adjusted the spice level. I call this Carlos's Inferno. It's got bite. But the lime and cilantro cool it down, kind of. Meanwhile, Uncle Mike stood behind a glowing vat of what could only be described as a chemical weapon in sauce form. This here's Hellfire Extreme, he announced proudly. Ain't for the faint of heart. One drop will wake you up, 2 drops will make you see stars. Va Lith leaned toward T. Rivak, her wings twitching. Should we intervene? That substance appears to be combusting. Stand by, T. Rivak replied, though his gelatinous form rippled nervously. When the humans completed their dishes, they presented them with varying degrees of confidence. Emma's stir-fry shimmered with a glossy sauce, Carlos's salsa radiated a menacing orange hue, and Mike's Hellfire Extreme seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. The Zorathi gathered cautiously, their sensory appendages twitching as they absorbed the pungent aromas. Begin Phase 2, Zelthax ordered. Human volunteers, proceed to consume your creations. Emma took a bite of her stir-fry and sighed contentedly. Perfect balance, she said, smiling. The chili oil hits first, then the garlic, then the sweetness.
Carlos stuffed a chip loaded with salsa into his mouth and let out a whoop. Now that's what I'm talking about, he said, his face flushing red. It's like fire, but in a good way.
Uncle Mike dipped a spoon into his Hellfire Extreme and licked it clean. He smacked his lips, his weathered face breaking into a grin. Still got it. Any of why all ready to give this a shot. The Zorathi recoiled as one.
After observing the humans' reactions, the Zorathi moved to the next phase of testing, sampling the dishes themselves. The humans, delighted at the chance to introduce aliens to their cuisine, helped the crew prepare diluted portions that wouldn't incapacitate them.
T. Rivak went first, his gelatinous form tense with anticipation. He picked up a small piece of Emma's stir-fry and carefully placed it in his sensory cavity. For a moment, nothing happened. Then his body quivered, his surface rippling with waves of light. It burns, he said, his voice high and thin. But there is flavor, depth. The sensation is not entirely unpleasant. Encouraged, Va Lith tried a drop of Carlos's salsa, her wings fluttering erratically. It's intense, she said, her voice breathy. Vibrant, it feels, alive. Zelthax, ever the stoic leader, dipped a mandible tip into Uncle Mike's Hellfire Extreme. The result was immediate. His chitinous carapace glowed a bright orange, and a small puff of steam rose from his mandibles. He stood motionless for several seconds before finally speaking. It is formidable. I respect its power. The humans burst into applause. That's what I'm talking about, Commander Carlos said, grinning. You're one of us now. For the Zorathi, the experience was transformative. They had approached Earth's cuisine with skepticism, even fear, but now they glimpsed its potential. Spicy food wasn't just a culinary curiosity, it was a window into the human spirit, bold, resilient, and unafraid to embrace the burn. And though they didn't fully understand it yet, one thing was clear: they were hungry for more. The Asilarians' once sterile research bay had transformed into a vibrant, if slightly chaotic, experimental kitchen. Where quiet, methodical precision had once reigned, now there was a symphony of activity: sizzling pans, clattering utensils, and the unmistakable crackle of spices meeting hot oil. Earth's fiery cuisine had sparked a cultural revolution among the Zorathi crew, and the enthusiasm was contagious. But with enthusiasm came challenges. I'm detecting significant thermal fluctuations in the crew quarters, Va Lith reported during the morning diagnostics. Several members have been attempting to replicate human dishes using unauthorized heating equipment. They've overtaxed the ventilation systems. Commander Zelthax's mandibles twitched in irritation. This ship is not designed for culinary chaos, he declared. Our primary mission remains scientific. I will issue a directive too. T. Rivak interrupted with uncharacteristic boldness. With respect, Commander, I believe this experimentation is vital. Our crew is bonding. He gestured to a nearby workstation, where a group of junior researchers were huddled around a makeshift cooking station, debating the correct ratio of chili to Zorathi nutrient paste. Zelthax observed the scene in silence. The researchers' usually reserved demeanor had been replaced with animated camaraderie. They gestured excitedly, their movements fluid and unrestrained. It was a striking contrast to the rigid formality that typically defined Zorathi interactions. Bonding, Zelthax repeated, his tone contemplative. Intriguing. T. Rivak had emerged as an unlikely culinary pioneer among the crew. Despite his initial skepticism, his meticulous nature made him well-suited to the challenge of adapting Earth recipes to Zorathi biology. Word spread quickly about his creations, and soon his tasting sessions became the most popular event on the ship. "This is my latest attempt," T. Rivak announced one evening, presenting a dish inspired by Emma's Sichuan stir-fry. The sauce shimmered in hues of red and orange, a delicate balance of capsacin and Zorathi nutrient gel. "I've adjusted the spice level to minimize combustion risk while preserving the complexity of flavor." A small crowd of crew members gathered, their sensory appendages quivering with anticipation. Zeltax himself stood at the back of the room, his antennae angled sharply forward. Via Lith was the first to sample the dish. She took a cautious bite, her translucent wings fluttering as the heat spread through her system. "It's invigorating," she said, her voice tinged with surprise. "The burn lingers? But it's not unpleasant. It compels you to keep tasting." Encouraged by her reaction, other crew members followed suit. Their responses ranged from cautious approval to outright delight. Even Zeltax eventually stepped forward, taking a measured bite. His carapace glowed faintly, a sure sign of capsacin's effects, but he offered a single, decisive verdict: acceptable. T. Rivak rippled with pride. "I believe we are beginning to understand." As the Zorathi embraced Earth's spicy cuisine, the humans found themselves caught up in the excitement. Emma, Carlos, and Uncle Mike became unofficial ambassadors of Earth's culinary culture, guiding the crew with equal parts patience and amusement. "You've got to balance the heat with other flavors," Emma explained as she helped a group of researchers prepare a batch of tacos. "Spicy food isn't just about the burn, it's about the journey. The heat wakes up your palate so you can taste everything else more vividly." Carlos, meanwhile, had organized a spice challenge for the more daring crew members. The rules were simple: start with a mild dish and work your way up to increasingly intense levels of heat. The event was a roaring success, with participants cheering each other on as they tackled each new dish. "You've got this," Zeltax Carlos shouted as the commander dipped a mandible into a bowl of bright red salsa labeled Caution Level 6. Zeltax hesitated briefly before consuming the salsa in one swift motion. A hush fell over the room as everyone waited for his reaction. The commander's carapace glowed a brilliant orange, and a small puff of steam escaped his mandibles. He stood perfectly still for a moment, then raised a single claw in a gesture of triumph. The room erupted into cheers. Legend Carlos declared, clapping Zeltax on the back. "You're officially spicier than half the humans I know." Even Uncle Mike, initially dismissive of the Zorathi's cautious approach, found himself impressed by their progress. "Why, all ain't half bad," he said, watching as Va Lith carefully measured out drops of his Hellfire Extreme sauce into a bowl of Zorathi nutrient paste. "Might make chili heads out of you yet." Va Lith took a tentative bite, her wings fluttering wildly as the heat hit her. "It's exhilarating," she gasped, her voice high-pitched but delighted. "I feel like I could fly faster." Uncle Mike chuckled. "That's the Hellfire effect. Makes you feel alive." The enthusiasm aboard the Xylarian didn't go unnoticed. Reports of the crew's culinary experiments reached Zorath Prime, sparking a mix of curiosity and concern among the scientific community. While some viewed the embrace of Earth cuisine as a groundbreaking cultural exchange, others saw it as a dangerous deviation from Zorathi traditions. A formal inquiry was launched, and T. Rivak found himself summoned to defend the crew's activities. Addressing a panel of senior scientists via holo-conference, he laid out his findings with practiced precision. Earth's spicy cuisine represents more than just an anomaly in dietary preferences, he began. It is a window into humanity's unique approach to challenge and resilience. By willingly engaging with discomfort, humans expand their thresholds, both individually and collectively. This is a concept we, as a species, can learn from. The panel exchanged skeptical glances. "You believe these experiments hold scientific merit?" one of the scientists asked, his voice tinged with disapproval. "I do," T. Rivak replied firmly. "Spicy food is not merely a culinary curiosity, it is a metaphor for growth. By embracing the burn, humans remind us that discomfort is not something to be feared, but something to be explored." The Xylarians' experiments continued unabated, with the crew pushing the boundaries of their culinary creations. T. Revac worked tirelessly to develop a hybrid dish that combined the bold flavors of Earth's spices with traditional Zorathi ingredients. The result was a dish he called Ignis Fusion, a carefully balanced blend of capsacin, nutrient gel, and bioluminescent algae. When the dish was unveiled during a ship-wide feast, it was met with rapturous applause. Crew members described it as transformative, energizing, and unlike anything in the galaxy. "It's more than food," V.A. Lith said after her third helping. "It's an experience." As the feast continued, the humans watched with pride as their alien companions embraced the spirit of spice. "You've come a long way," Emma said, raising a glass of water in a toast. "Here's to the Xylarian, the spiciest ship in the galaxy." The Zorathi cheered, their voices ringing out in unison, and as T. Revac looked around the room, he realized that the crew's transformation wasn't just about food. It was about connection, resilience, and the discovery that even the most alien of experiences could bring them closer together. When the Xylarian returned to Zorath Prime, its arrival was met with an unprecedented level of public attention. What was supposed to have been a routine food chain survey had instead become a cultural phenomenon, sparking intrigue and debate across the Confederation. The crew's experiments with Earth's fiery cuisine and their glowing endorsements of the transformative experience had made headlines, and the scientific elite were eager to examine the implications. A grand symposium was convened in the gleaming halls of the Zorathi Capitol Dome, where T. Revac and his team were invited to present their findings. The chamber, filled with towering crystalline structures that reflected the city's golden light, buzzed with anticipation. Zorathi scientists, dignitaries, and curious citizens filled the amphitheater, eager to hear what these returning explorers had discovered about humanity and perhaps themselves. T. Revac took his place at the central podium, his gelatinous form shimmering as he adjusted the controls for his holo display. Behind him, images of Earth's vibrant markets, food festivals, and spicy dishes flickered to life, drawing gasps from the audience. "We embarked on this mission with a simple goal to catalog Earth's food chain for potential trade opportunities," T. Revac began, his voice steady but resolute. "What we discovered was far more profound. Humanity's relationship with food, particularly their use of capsacin, defies conventional logic. It is an act of resilience, creativity, and above all, connection." He gestured toward a clip of humans participating in a chili eating contest, their faces contorted with exaggerated agony as the crowd cheered them on. Spicy food for humans is not merely sustenance. It is a shared challenge, a way to push boundaries and celebrate their ability to endure. They willingly court discomfort because it teaches them something invaluable: how to grow. The audience murmured, their antennae twitching with intrigue. One of the panelists, Professor Korath, raised a claw. "But is this behavior not reckless? Capsacin is a toxin. It induces pain. Surely this is counter to the principles of rational consumption." T. Revac nodded. "Indeed, it is unconventional. But that is precisely the point. Humans do not view pain as merely an obstacle to be avoided. They see it as an opportunity, a threshold to cross in pursuit of something greater. Through spice, they experience joy, camaraderie, and discovery." At this, Emma, Carlos, and Uncle Mike, seated nearby as honored guests, nodded in agreement. Carlos raised a hand and grinned. "It's like I always say, spice is a journey. You start small, but the more you take, the stronger you get. It's not about pain, it's about the thrill of overcoming it." Uncle Mike leaned forward, his gruff voice carrying across the room. "And let's not forget it tastes darn good." Laughter rippled through the chamber, a rare sound in such a formal setting. The Zorathi leadership, intrigued but skeptical, agreed to a bold proposal: a galactic culinary showcase where humans would introduce their cuisine to Zorath Prime. The event was to be held in the sprawling gardens of the Capitol Dome, with representatives from across the Confederation invited to sample Earth-inspired dishes. T. Revac and his team worked tirelessly to ensure the event's success. The humans, ever eager to share their culture, threw themselves into the preparations with gusto. Emma led a group of Zorathi chefs through the delicate art of balancing heat and flavor, while Carlos created a gradient of sauces ranging from beginner-friendly to spicy enough to make your antennae curl. Uncle Mike, of course, unveiled his infamous Hellfire Extreme, complete with a stern warning: this one's for the brave. The day of the showcase dawned bright and clear. Tables laden with earth-inspired dishes stretched across the gardens, their vibrant colors and enticing aromas drawing curious Zorathi from every corner of the city. The atmosphere was electric, a mix of anticipation and trepidation as the delegates prepared to experience humanity's bold flavors for the first time. Emma welcomed the crowd with a warm smile. "Thank you for joining us," she said, her voice amplified by the garden's crystalline acoustics. "Today isn't just about food, it's about connection. Every dish here tells a story. We hope you'll enjoy this journey with us." The first course was mild, a selection of dishes designed to introduce the Zorathi to Earth's spices without overwhelming their senses. T. Ravok's Ignis Fusion, a delicate blend of capsacin and bioluminescent Zorathi algae, was an immediate hit, earning murmurs of approval from even the most skeptical delegates. "This is remarkable," one scientist said, his carapace glowing faintly. "The heat enhances the other flavors, creating a depth I have never experienced before." As the courses progressed, the heat levels increased. The delegates approached each new dish with a mix of curiosity and caution, their reactions ranging from delighted chirps to startled gasps. By the time they reached Carlos's level 5 salsa inferno, the crowd was abuzz with animated conversation. "It's unlike anything we've ever encountered," one delegate exclaimed, her sensory appendages fluttering with excitement. "The discomfort is invigorating." Even Zeltax, known for his stoic demeanor, couldn't resist a rare display of enthusiasm as he sampled a spoonful of Hellfire Extreme. His carapace briefly glowed a fiery orange, and a small puff of steam escaped his mandibles. "Formidable," he declared, earning cheers from the humans. The event's success sparked a culinary revolution on Zorath Prime. Markets began stocking Earth-inspired ingredients, from dried chilies to vibrant spice blends. Zorathi chefs embraced the challenge of integrating capsacin into their traditional recipes, creating fusion dishes that blended their culture's bioluminescent aesthetics with Earth's bold flavors. T. Rivak, now hailed as the Confederation's foremost culinary innovator, found himself at the center of this movement. His dishes became a symbol of the newfound bond between the Zorathi and humanity, celebrated for their ability to challenge perceptions and foster connection. For the humans, the experience was equally transformative. They had shared a piece of their culture and, in doing so, gained a deeper understanding of their own resilience and creativity. As Emma put it during a workshop with aspiring Zorathi chefs, spice isn't just a flavor, it's a way of looking at the world. It reminds us that growth often comes with a little heat. Uncle Mike, ever the pragmatist, summed it up more succinctly. Hot sauce fixes everything. As the Xylarian prepared to embark on its next mission, the crew gathered one last time to reflect on their journey. The research bay, once a sterile laboratory, now felt like a home, its walls filled with the scents and memories of shared meals and newfound camaraderie. T. Rivak addressed the crew, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. This mission began as an exploration of Earth's food chain, but it became something far greater. Through spice, we discovered not only the ingenuity of humanity but also our own capacity for growth. Let us carry this lesson with us as we continue to explore the unknown. The crew erupted into cheers, their voices ringing out in unison, and as the Xylarian ascended into the stars, it carried with it not only the knowledge of Earth's fiery cuisine, but the spirit of resilience and connection that made it so uniquely human.